Hey, what's going on? I'm going to have kind of a casual day. The headline, I put just niche sites dealing with Google and stories I made up. Not sure if we'll have a ton of people on today. Let me know if you could hear me in the chat. Marcus is out there, a good supporter of the live streams. Marcus says it's dinner time in the Netherlands, so he's going to catch it later. But I think a couple people will probably pop on. Couple videos that I published recently were around the publisher success stories that Google features. So we're actually just going to click through. I published a couple videos about this and kind of randomly selected a couple of sites just to check to see the estimated traffic, because word on the street was, when I talked to Spencer Hawes, he said there are some of these sites that were featured by the publisher success story team, yet they have been hit by the recent Google updates. So there were some interesting things, including some of the site owners that were featured by Google. And I'll show you, I mean, this is literally Google, people at Google, people that work at Google, working with these publishers, and they're like, you're doing a great job, and then these same folks get hit with updates, so that kind of sucks. And we'll just kind of look at those. We'll see where it goes. Nico is on from South Africa. Welcome, good to see you on here, and welcome to the live stream. Like I said, Marcus will be eating dinner, so kind of shifting around the times, trying to figure out my exact schedule. A couple things, I'm going to pop over to the description. I encourage folks to look in the description because I bury all sorts of stuff in there. So please check it out. Couple quick things, and I guess I could just straight up share my screen here so we can look through the same stuff. That way I'm looking and you're looking. So here is the description that, like I said, you can take a quick peek at it. So we have the Ranking Revolution podcast. That's my new podcast, and it is targeted at SEO professionals, marketing professionals. For the Doug Show, we often talk about like side hustles and getting started, maybe some more basic topics, some advanced stuff, but a lot of times it is more basic and beginner level. So Ranking Revolution is more about the business side of it. So we talk to agency owners, we talk about things that pro level folks are doing, or like marketing directors. So check it out. I do have some interviews out there from people in our, niche site world as well, including Spencer Hawes, Ricky Kessler. Those are actually some of the most popular interviews. Next thing to note is the SEO Estonia. This looks like an awesome conference. I'm not going to be able to go due to some other travel plans, but it looks like a killer set of speakers. It looks like a really cool place to go. And I was invited to speak there, but had to decline due to the other travel arrangements. But really awesome lineup. So hopefully someday in the future, not this year, but maybe next year, I could check it out. So SEO Estonia looks cool. And one other thing, so I'll come back to this too. So even though there's all these Google updates and stuff, there's a lot of things flying around. My wife retired in the last couple weeks here. So we interviewed her for my other podcast in personal finance and financial independence. So you could actually watch that and check it out. It's like an hour and 15-minute interview or so. And we'll come back to it in a second. We got Jason on here as well. Welcome, Jason. And like I mentioned, we have a couple of videos that I just published that have been interesting because I didn't publish too much about like the Google updates. It seems like the Google updates were not rolling back the helpful content update. A lot of sites that seemed like they were doing the right thing were hit by helpful content. It seemed like we were due for an update that would address and perhaps reverse some of the helpful content updates. However, we ended up with like even more horrible results. And the reason why this is such an interesting topic here is because we have this, it's google.com/ads/publisher/stories. So these are features by Google. They are focusing on people that are doing a good job earning money with ads. So that's the angle here. So the ad team, it's a big company, right? They're doing all sorts of stuff. And the videos that I publish, like the title is Google incompetent or are they lying? And they're not mutually exclusive. And the thing is, we can see that like Google manually penalized a bunch of different websites and a bunch of, portfolio of websites. So they literally couldn't detect it from an algorithm standpoint. Otherwise, they wouldn't manually do it, right? They would do it in a systematic way instead of manually doing it. So that is a sign of incompetence, right? Like their main thing is to provide like good search results and like help answer questions. So basically they have a big team, the ad team, they have the search team, they have a whole bunch of other stuff going on, right? It's like AI, there's some social stuff, YouTube's part of it, blah, 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 right? So it's complicated. I know it's complicated. So I created this somewhat, it's a good title. It's controversial. There's an emoji, great. People love emojis. And it's short. People understood what I was talking about. So I took a look at a couple of these sites, and most of them did get hit by the various updates. One super interesting comment that I want to highlight here is this one. So Charleston Crafted is one of the sites, and they got hit pretty hard. They said that they had a Google photographer there taking pictures for the latest lobbying portfolio, which I didn't clarify the meaning, but it sounds like, Google is lobbying stuff, right? So they're trying to get laws in their favor. So they go lobby politicians, right? So they're like Google is taking photos so they could say, hey, we're helping these small businesses. So anyway, they further say, we've sent many complaints to our direct Google contacts, and they told us that Google is committed to an open web. So losing traffic doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. Google just might have uncovered someone new who previously wasn't featured. And they are obviously confused, whatever that means. And, thank God for Pinterest. So what we're seeing here is, again, we have Google saying, hey, folks are doing great. And we'll go click through and look at some of these others. But people are doing great. And then they get hit by the update, and they have one team over here where the ad team is talking to Charleston Crafted saying, hey, you guys are doing an awesome job. We're going to showcase you. We're going to put you in a portfolio for lobbying. But they can't even get the strings pulled. They can't even get the strings pulled to take care of that. And I would be, if I was them, this is all entertainment, folks. I don't know what I'm talking about. I've literally done no other research than just clicking around here. Just want to be clear about that. So this is just entertainment. But if I was them, I would go, whoever Google is lobbying to, whatever Congress people, I would send them emails. I would set up a fucking meeting with my congressperson in town and get under their fucking skin. Because this is like a PR nightmare. And there was speculation. I saw a couple posts. There's a great post over, we'll find the link in a second. I can't remember where it is. But a great article, and someone could probably post it here, where essentially Google is just like going after, short-term revenue at the expense of the search results. And basically what we're seeing, and it's very clear, Gaz mentions Ricky from Income School posted a video today that basically says he went over the article. So he linked to it there. So Ricky is saying like, hey, it looks like, we're not after the best results anymore, which I think the emails from Google internal, which were disclosed through some of the antitrust and some of the proceedings and trial and stuff like that that's going on, this stuff was exposed, so now it's public record, right? So they had to put it into public record because it's trial. So a lot of these emails from a few years back are out there. So overall, the gist of it is search results are not the goal. It's a company trying to make profits, so that's what they're aiming for. By the way, in this same video, Duke actually published, our friend Duke, Pastor Duke, he published it somewhere. I thought he commented somewhere in here, but it may have not published for some reason. Anyway, the point is we had people that were featured in the video actually leave a comment, say they got hit. It's ridiculous. Another shout out quickly to Tim Wells, who he shared the video on Twitter, which was great. And it got some traction out here, apparently like 28,000 views, which seems good. Bunch of retweets and a lot of conversation. So some 25 odd comments over here, and a lot of people commented on it. A couple of them were a lot more detailed, but you get the idea of what's going on over here. So a couple questions, and we'll take a look at those in a second here. So let's pop over to, all right. Gaz says, question for the stream. What are people's thoughts on what might happen? Will we all get a small traffic boost in traffic? Yeah, curious to see. Yeah, I'm curious to see what people think. I commented on Ricky's video this morning. Folks, check it out. I didn't link to it, but you all know Income School. So we should be thinking about like not being dependent on any one platform, right? And I don't think anyone expected all of the massive impact of the latest updates, but overall, we should imagine our business without Google traffic or Facebook traffic. Because if something changes and that's pretty much your sole traffic source, then you're screwed. And the thing is, like, I remember this more back in the day where people would, maybe I just exited the conversations and stopped paying attention, but people would diversify by having like multiple sites, but they all got traffic from Google with the same sort of methods, or they all had the same income source or the same revenue model. So basically, if someone just recreated the same thing over and over, even if it was different niches, they're still exposed, even though it was a rare event that would have to happen for their portfolio to be impacted. It's fairly fragile if they're getting all their traffic from one place and it's the same business model. The point being, if you want to make sure you can weather these rare events like big Google updates where all of a sudden, you know what, they're gonna try to sweat us out here, right? They're gonna hit all these sites. They're hoping that many influencer types are just going to say, hey, don't worry about Google traffic. What I'm explaining is probably what Google wants, right? Just publish stuff. Imagine like Google's not there. And in fact, just fuck Google, altogether. Don't worry about that traffic. Publish what you think is interesting, what could help your audience. And, unfortunately, that is actually what Google is saying, right? They want you just to ignore the search engine, ignore all that stuff, and publish what makes the most sense for your audience. And actually, if you do that, if you publish really good content, I'm not saying you're going to get Google traffic, but you potentially have really good content that people want to get a hold of. And technically, even though it's very crowded in almost all spaces, technically, if you have very good content and you actually like find a way to penetrate the audience, penetrate the competition and get out there, you're probably going to be okay. But you have to imagine any specific traffic source could go away. So you have to make sure you have a platform that is independent of stuff. So super hard to do, of course, but that's what you have to imagine. And I mean, I haven't switched search engines yet, but I think, you know what? We're a very small niche group, but I mean, I talked to my neighbor, a couple, retirees in their 60s, and they were like, I can't find the stuff that I'm trying to search for. I was trying to Google it, but I wonder, right? If all of us, I mean, we're not going to be a drop in the bucket. We're just barely dozens of people, hundreds, maybe a couple thousand if you put together some big audiences, not mine. But if we all stop using Google and use, I don't know, whatever else, pick your favorite search engine. Some people like DuckDuckGo for the privacy thing. Some people like Bing. But basically, if you stop using this shitty product, which people will stop using, I mean, they could Google can rejigger their, revenue model so they can earn more money from less people. But basically, if we don't like what Google's doing, like, stop using the products. I mean, that's like the only thing that we can really control, which is kind of silly. It's a big company, and I realize we barely have any sort of sway, but on a small level, that's all you can do. If you don't like, some neighborhood market, the way they're operating their business, you don't shop there, right? So maybe we can stop using Google just on an individual level, which again, it seems silly, but at least you're not supporting them. They're not getting data from you. Stop fucking using Chrome. Use Safari or some other search some other browser out there, where you have options. There's competition, and it's one of the little things that we can do. So let's start looking at some of these other success stories. I'm not going to pop over to SEMrush, but that is the tool that I used previously to take a look. Just the free version, but if you do check out the first video, you'll see a link and you can get a free trial over there. All right. So they feature stories here. I didn't watch the video, but they feature stories, but basically they're finding good websites to feature here. And as Gaz mentions, essentially, I mean, Google has many different teams. There's an ad team and there's a search team, and they have different goals. They have different priorities, and they probably don't talk to each other. It's a big company. They probably don't sit near each other, and they have different directives and different priorities, and someone is in charge of both of them and was like, you know what, search team, do your thing over there. And it's a little ridiculous if you actually like believe what the guidance is from the search team, because it doesn't quite add up. All right. So there's a bunch of them, and you could filter based on where the folks are earning money. So it's Ad Manager, AdSense, AdMob. And you can check out the business size, which is generically noted as small, medium, and then large, right? So small and medium are together, and then large. And then the industry. So you can kind of whittle it down to the different areas. Again, there are a lot of them listed here. And then the region, the geography. So North, South America, Asia, and then Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So a lot of ground to cover, And if you just, I mean, there's so many. You see, we start with numbers and then it's alphabetical order if you just go through. And there are a lot of them. And I just arbitrarily clicked around and picked various different ones. I think I may have focused a little bit. There's Charleston Crafted that I mentioned before. And I mean, they send photographers out. They do little features. One of the other, and actually I know Craft Rights. I know Chris, met him out in Atlanta for some meetup years ago. So as we're scrolling down, Epic Gardening, another big site. And of course, not everyone got hit here. I just quickly went through and picked a handful, but there are a lot of travel blogs. There are a lot of food blogs. This site, Iowa Girl Eats, was already getting something like 400,000 estimated traffic, 400,000 visitors per month or page views per month. And hers went up over the last few months by, I can't remember. I think she's now getting like in the millions of visitors per month. So her site blew up. And there were a handful of sites that were more on the smaller side. So they were getting maybe tens of thousands of visitors per month versus hundreds of thousands. And as you can see, again, just various completely different types of websites. So low income relief, Maple Tech International, Marathon Handbook, Matchingham Games, Media Trade Craft, Mel's Kitchen Cafe. And we're just like scrolling through all of them here. So I haven't counted all of them, but I have to imagine it's in the dozens or maybe over 100 here just as we're scrolling down, and we're only in the queues. Well, there's one queue. We got Roasty Coffee. So here's one that I featured, and I want to highlight this one because it has an interesting story. So Jake Kane is actually not the founder, but he's the owner. He's out of Cincinnati, home of Skyline Chili. And you can see he's at a coffee roasting place. And this is interesting because I don't know Jake personally, but he helped out Spencer Hawes at Niche Pursuits for a little while. I don't remember the capacity that he helped out, but if we look here, he built his first site, Ballpark Savvy, in 2008, and it has travel tips for Major League Baseball stadiums. And I'm curious what happened to that site, because the funny thing is there are so many examples of travel sites where they clearly went out and documented things in a detailed firsthand way. They're firsthand accounts, they're taking pictures, they're doing what they're supposed to do, and those sites were hit too. So basically, the reason why this is a very interesting site is it was created by my friend Matt Giovanisi. So roastycoffee.com was created, I can't remember when Matt started it, but I think he sold it in like 2018. Yeah, he sold it in 2018. And then Matt focused even more on Swim University. So after Jake got it, I think he grew the site quite a bit. And it was featured in a lot of different places. It's a great looking site. Matt's super into coffee as well, so I know he did a good job. Occasionally he has it on Nitro in his kegerator. So Roasty was featured in Business Insider, BuzzFeed, Fast Company, Today, Wired, Yahoo, among others. And it appears that Roasty Coffee had a tremendous amount of traffic for a very long time, and then has dropped very, very low if you go take a look. I have no clue. I haven't reached out to Jake. I haven't chatted with him or anything like that, but I hope he has a bunch of other traffic sources to help weather. And I see there's an email list here. So, conceivably, revenue has dropped by a large amount, but if he had other traffic sources and an email list, YouTube channel, and all the other pieces of the puzzle, then maybe he's going to be all right and can sort of make it through. But the thing that hurts the most for these sites, like all these sites that are featured here, see, and they do an interview again. So like they go out, they take some photos, they do a full interview. I put in the video like, hey, is Google incompetent or are they lying? And a lot of people said it's both. But the thing is, I mean, the individuals at Google are not incompetent. They're all very smart people, right? It's like some of the smartest, best people that have worked at other places, that have, come out of the best schools. Like they're really smart, right? So it made it through. It made it through the barriers to get in and to be featured by Google. And they spent all this time, and then these poor site owners have their sites penalized. So it really sucks. Anyway, yeah, they do a full interview. This one's kind of a longer one, and you could see, it's like a super cool thing for the site owners to be featured, yet they're in a, now they're in a position where they're like sort of scrambling. And I mean, I would say everyone that commented on the video or over on Twitter, they said the ad team is super cool and they were really helping us out. And it was a great experience overall. But then you end up in a situation where they probably don't trust Google overall anymore. So quick note, the other cool thing is like, if you're featured in here, like you're getting these links. So, Jake got a link over to Ballpark Savvy and Roasty Coffee, of course, and Ballpark Savvy looks like it's still around here. And we could check to see, maybe we can see, well, we'll just take a look at the about page. Yep, so it looks like Jake is still running it, has a couple writers on staff as well. So that's one I wanted to highlight. I'll pop back over to the chat and see what's going on. And if you have any questions out there, let me know. Okay. Let's go to the big screen. Sam says, strangely, in prioritizing Reddit and Quora, they're valuing the word of people with no metric to measure if it's a decent answer instead of having blogs and niche site people put time and effort into it. Yeah. Well, and the thing that, man, there's so many issues. Even before this, I was not a fan of Reddit. So, you go over there, if you're looking for something specific where you kind of want or need the crowd feedback, then it can be helpful. But what it degrades into is completely unhelpful bullshit. So you end up with people arguing or people providing information that they have like no fucking clue what they're talking about. They read they saw a TikTok and then they believed it, and then they write the answer in there and they state it like they did, university level research or something like that. So you end up with just like a lot of bad answers. Quora is, I don't know. Whatever I see over there, it looks like people are just doing link building and marketing. So if I see an answer, it's usually, again, just kind of bullshit. So both Reddit and Quora are potentially some of the worst places that I end up going to find information. It's usually literally the worst information I could find. Or if it's not the worst, you have to go verify it from a bunch of different sources, which ends up wasting time. So I agree with you, Sam. I think you end up with really bad results, and I don't think that's what people actually want. And yeah, so guys, you should, I think you got a lot of your news from just other people talking about it. So definitely read the firsthand information out there, by the way. So I think Eric corrected you here and says they didn't acquire Reddit. They paid them to gather information to train AI. So basically, I mean, your hunch is right, guys, right? So Google has a conflict of interest. They're biased towards Reddit because they paid Reddit a large amount of money to get access to, again, what I mean, what it comes down to, it's really bad information from questionable people. And then the other thing is like, marketers and SEOs are going to go to Reddit and infiltrate even further. So it's not like you end up with a better solution. You just end up with like a different place for marketers to go and then essentially ruin it. So there is a conflict of interest and a bias towards Reddit, of course, but Google didn't acquire Reddit. Okay. And so Guy says the May 5th update is apparently targeting more spammy websites, so we may get a small boost. I wouldn't count on that. I wouldn't count on that. I would say, I know, you know what? Wherever we're getting information is a bad source. So if it's from Google, obviously they don't have our interest in mind and they are doing something different, and generally they are bad. They're bad partners. The second part of my title of the headline, are they incompetent or are they lying? They literally, they're putting out information that may or may not be accurate. Or you know what? Even if we give them the benefit of the doubt, which I don't think they deserve, I think even if the information is accurate, it's probably not accurate across different industries, different parts of the web. And again, if you give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe it is correct information, but it may not be correct information for you. So I don't think, I thought the May 5th update was more potentially around the parasite SEO and parasite sites. So it'll be very interesting. It would be interesting if a couple like bigger sites got hit and then they were like, you know what? We're not using Google anymore. We're cutting some ties and we're not going to do advertising there or whatever. It'd be very interesting if they pissed off the wrong company who somehow had enough clout, which I don't know what company that would be. Amazon, maybe? Not sure. All right. So I wouldn't count on a traffic boost in any capacity. And hopefully, I don't know if it's going to come to this, but at some point it would be interesting if we're like, as site owners, as content site owners, if we're not getting traffic from Google, if there's sort of a movement like, hey, we're not going to use the Google search engine. Also, we're going to no index it and say, Google, you can't access the content on my website. Go fuck yourself. Get it from somewhere else. Get it from the bozos over on Reddit. Whatever. Uh, 24K Will says, Google buried one of my sites and now all of the top results are forums with 3+ years ago in terrible relevancy. Surely this on a wide scale will hurt them and you're still ranking well on Bing. Yeah, and I think it'll be very interesting because there's some things where like it's just worse information on the forums. Again, I know sometimes one of the places when I was learning to brew, I would go to this website, Homebrew Talk, and it was like homebrewers, and that's one of the places where it's really interesting to get like a wide range of information. And some people have credentials, right? So they're like, I'm a BJCP judge. I brew professionally at this place. And maybe you've heard me on podcast. So you kind of know, like, if that person posts, like, you can kind of trust them. And then there's other, there's random people, of course, but there's a handful of folks that actually have some authority and trust and expertise, like, sort of built in. also through the number of posts that they've had. So you can actually get some good information there, depending on what it is. From the perspective of Reddit, like mostly not good, I would say. And that I'm not a person, you know what? Some people love Reddit, and I'm not one of them. Yep, and God says the trouble with Reddit is opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. So true. Oh, and Mark, can you expand on this? Mark, the opposing idea. So you don't think that having forums in the results will hurt Google. In fact, as a user, you prefer it. So the issue here, and we could highlight, I mean, I think there are probably cases, so I gave one, homebrew talk, depending on the topic, might be relevant. However, 24K Will mentions if the top results are forum posts, but they're old, not helpful. Earlier today, I was looking through some camera gear. I was looking at some camera stuff, and cameras like phones, like other things that change, and there's new models every 18 months to 3 years, depending on the life cycle of a product and all that kind of stuff. All that kind of stuff. If I'm trying to find information on a camera that was released like 2 months ago or 2 weeks ago or 2 days ago, I really don't want the forum post. I don't want the 3-year-old forum post. That's not going to help me. That'll actually be like, I'll automatically know the information is wrong and completely not helpful. Depends on the topic. So expand, Mark, because I know, I mean, again, there's some validity to having forum and user generated content, but I think most of the time not super helpful. And as a rule, it depends on the subreddit, but I mean, people on Reddit are often jerks. As a non-Reddit user, I can confidently say that some Reddits are a little bit more supportive, but the ones that I've seen generally are horrible. They're just mean people. It's like YouTube comments, right? Depending on like the video and the channel and all that kind of stuff, it can have like a positive spin or it can have a negative spin. And Reddit generally is negative from what I've seen. So let's pop over. Let's pop over again. And I would love it, by the way, if you didn't check out the original video, would love it if you went over there and left a comment. You could reply back to people that have already left a comment. If you don't have anything specific to say, that's a great way to do it. And just have a little discussion. Rarely do I get very many likes on my videos, but this one has tipped the scales at 100 already. So pretty high percentage as far as my videos go. So let's whittle it down. Excuse me, folks. I'm still getting over the little cough when I talk a lot. So let's go media and entertainment. Oh, there's only one there. All right, less fun. Oh, I see. So we filter on a couple things here. Before we hit these, Will says content creators will pivot to content optimized for social and email, not search. There's no point in writing the same amount of informational content as before. Wonder what will happen then to train AI and search results going forward. Yep, and that's the issue because they actually do need the original content. And one of the key places is actually travel. So I wonder, was travel specifically listed here? But that is the thing. With travel, you need the firsthand information. And if you don't have it, then you're kind of stuck from a training AI perspective because it kind of does a bad job. So let's see if we could find maybe a travel type one here. A lot of gardening. Home to Havana. Mickey visit. All right. So Gavin Doyle. So planning the dream Disney vacation. So Gavin went there, started a blog and a podcast. Mickey visit and Disney dose. So we haven't looked, but if someone out there wants to check really quick on SEMrush or somewhere, for Disney fans, by Disney fans. So this is another one where it's like you kind of need this firsthand experience. So if this site got hit, that's another one where it's like someone's putting all this time and effort and Google is just like, nah, we're not gonna rank it anymore. So I'm not sure. I didn't look at this one, but anything travel, really tough to pull together. All right, let's hit some questions here. What else is going on out there? All right. All right. And Protozoan says, I'm from Reddit, grow some hair. See, perfect example right there. Just mean-spirited. Good grief. I think some of the, like I said, some of the subreddits way more supportive, and it probably depends on like where you're going. But okay, and Mark, expand on this. So you say you're going to need firsthand information on any niche. So here's the issue. You don't know who you're getting the information from. So what ends up happening, especially if you're like, hey, should I get product X or product Y? You maybe end up with people who don't know the products at all. So yeah, sure, it could be helpful to have firsthand information. But if you're getting it from some rando who doesn't know what they're talking about, then it's not helpful. So that is an issue. And again, if you end up on a subreddit that has more negative interactions than positive interactions, then people are more likely to be fighting with each other, and then it's really hard to actually get information. So I have plenty of examples where I've like tried to find information and then I end up on Reddit and I'm like, this is actually not helpful at all. So I was looking up magnesium supplements, and there's a lot of different compounds for the supplements. So I was like, this compound versus this compound, and trying to find information. And basically you end up with people that don't know what they're talking about, and they know less than me. They've done less research, but they're like trying to answer the question. And that's the problem. 24K Will says, do I support an NBA team? No, not specifically, although I'm in the Denver area. So we watched a couple games when they were in the playoffs last year. And I think they're in the playoffs this year. We were going to go to a game, but we actually we had tickets, but I had a cold. That's when I had a cold. So I was like, I probably shouldn't head over there at this point in time. So yeah, who do you follow? Will. And so that is the issue with some of the user-generated content. But Mark, here's the deal, right? So Google is literally ranking like Quora, user-generated content above most everything else. They're like trying to throw in some of their ads, but basically, maybe you're right. Maybe people like it, and it's just us weird SEO folks that hop on these live streams, and we're the ones that don't like it, but everyone else likes it. I would find that hard to believe. Again, the other anecdotal stuff is my neighbors who basically said, I don't know how to find, I'm having trouble searching for certain topics. I found it before and I don't know how I found it. And they just couldn't find the information they were looking for. So I believe other people don't enjoy those user generated results. Further, I mean, I guess we'll see how it plays out, right? Like if the searchers want the user generated content, then Google will probably keep doing it. But if they don't, then people will use different search engines. All right. And Mark says, I don't think Google would have done it without data, knowing that most will like it. I actually prefer user-generated content. And 24K Well says Reddit is okay for quick anecdotal answers, nothing specific or detailed. So there's much debate out there. So I think Reddit is not good for me, but it seems like the majority of the people on the chat seem to like Reddit. And I mean, Google's rolling it out big time. They invested a huge amount of money and they're ranking them. But I would say, all right, think about this for travel. Would you rather have a travel blog where someone went there, or would you rather have, and they took pictures and they did the whole thing, right? Or would you rather have a Reddit thread with a similar account? Which would you rather have? Steven says, I haven't been on here for a few years. Good to see you live. Any creators using ChatGPT over Fiverr creators and the like? Yeah, I think a lot of people are using various AI tools. However, if you haven't been around for a while, there's this Google update, a couple Google updates that really hit a lot of the content sites, the niche sites and authority sites. So a lot of people are scared to use AI, yet there's a bunch of other maybe more gray hat niche site and authority site creators that are still doing fine with AI. So a lot of sites were hit that used AI, but I think if you use it as part of your creative process, you might be all right. But that's a whole other conversation. So yeah, it's a deeper thing. Okay. And Mark says, do you think Google has done this without knowing, just said we're going to try something new? So I think, Mark, maybe you missed the first part of this. So I think Google is very smart, and I think they have different teams working on different stuff, and they're not talking to each other. So I think Google has data, and I think they probably knew what was going to happen, and I feel bad for the search team because I think they know the results are worse than they were. But I think the goal is not to provide the best results. The goal is revenue driven. And I don't have the link, but there was a story. I already mentioned this, so I'm not going to go into it. So Mark, just rewind the video. I'll quickly summarize. Basically, the goal is not to provide the best search results. The goal is to boost revenue. So they're running a business. It's a public company. They got to do this shit. So I assume the directive came down and, Google looks foolish because they featured these publisher success stories, yet these are sites that got hit with the updates. So I'm pretty sure Google knew what was going to happen. They have a pretty good idea as they're rolling out the updates. I mean, again, with the travel stuff, and I'll pull up a thread by Lily Ray here. But she's been following this stuff pretty She's very good SEO on top of it. But I'll share my screen in just a second. But she highlighted some travel blogs. And this is in the second video that I published, so I don't want to go too in depth, but basically 5 travel blogs. And she points out that they've done a really good job, not perfect, but they've done a really good job. And they lost 95% of a reduction in visibility, basically similar to sites that were penalized by Panda, Penguin, or Pure Spam. And basically she's like, should AI content farms be treated exactly the same as these travel blogs that are obviously creating like original content? So Mark, my angle is, I don't think that Google actually intended to do this. So there's obviously like unintended consequences. So again, I'm sure someone was like, you know what? We have to lock down this stuff. We know it's going to be messy. We know a bunch of sites are going to get impacted, including some partners that we've identified out there. We're actually going to hurt them too, and we're not going to do anything about it. We're not going to make them immune. I mean, that would have been interesting if they just would have said, all right, don't hurt these teams, like give them the green light, or these sites, give them the green light somehow. But you end up with like basically worse results. So Mark, to answer your question, do I think Google has done something without knowing? No, I think they know exactly what they're doing. Our mistake is we're thinking that they're going to do what they're saying and what they're telling us. They're not actually providing us the right information. And it seems, that's why, I titled it, Are They Lying or Are They Incompetent? And it's a little bit of both. Because I think they are actually misleading. And I'm not I talk bad about, here's Gail from Authority Hackers. So the scary part is that if they don't fix this, they'll create a closed loop environment where no new player enters to create content, in turn puts less pressure on the remaining publishers to improve their pages. In the end, this would lead to enshittification of search results by killing the ability for new players to challenge established publishers, who can then put in the minimum effort and just maximize their profit. Basically, these changes may make things easier in the short term, but in the long term, they're shooting themselves in the foot if they don't fix it quickly. Yep, 100%. So Mark, yeah, I think I ran it into the ground, and I think Google is very smart, but I think in the short term, they're like solving a couple of their problems, but I think in the long term, it will create more problems with them. And I mean, it creates a huge amount of like ill will towards them. Not that they were people's best friends, but I mean, it's no good. So, Gaz says, user experience is important. An expertly executed niche site would be more appealing to me than Reddit. I search and bypass Reddit and keep scrolling down. I mean, I do the same thing, right? But Mark, obviously they're getting a shitload of traffic right now. But I do wonder, like, if as people go over there, are they going to be like, these people are assholes, I don't want to get bullshit answers from people that don't know what they're talking about? Or are they going to be like, these people are brilliant, they're so kind, they're answering the question, and it's very clear they know what they're talking about? Jury's out. Jason says, Google does have data from Reddit. For years, they deprioritized it even for queries with Reddit in it. Great point. But now they're getting more training data by boosting Reddit. It's not about search quality. And Mark says, so most people think that Google pushed the wrong button. Do you mean like by accident? I mean, I don't think they accidentally did something. Although they had that issue with their AI, an image generation, which I can't remember exactly. I don't even know how to phrase it, but they had unintended consequences for trying to insert too much diversity into different requests for like portraits and stuff. So people can go look that up. But it was a big debacle, right? It was a huge mistake. So like I said, I don't think anyone thinks that Google pushed the wrong button. I think we are disappointed with the results. Even, right? So I'm not a practiced SEO. I'm not out there researching. I don't work with clients. I don't have a lot of data. But rare times when I pop over to Twitter, I do see people like Lily Ray or Gail or, many of the other very qualified people. I'm not there often. So the thing is that they're pointing out like, hey, these are obviously unintended consequences. Like, search team, what do you like? Are you doing anything? Like, what's your response? Like, what's the issue here? And it is a bit nonsense. Okay. Mark says, I have to admit my sites were hit and they're basically redundant informational sites. So looking at it, yes, sort of spammy. And I think, okay, so the problem is sites that weren't spammy. Again, Mark, all right, we'll have to stop this because we're just going in circles here. Mark. All right. So Google for Publishers, this is the publisher success stories, and they featured a bunch of these sites, right? Dozens of them. A number of these sites were hit by the updates. So clearly there's a differing priorities among the team. So I think you're missing the point and you're focusing on completely the wrong part. So like, ignore your site, ignore other spammy sites, many sites that were not spammy that Google literally featured, they were hit. So that's what we're talking about. So get out of your head. I think you're focusing on the wrong part, and we'll move on. All right. So yeah, and a couple of people are mentioning, a well-executed niche site that has good information will probably be a better experience. So overall, I mean, I think we just have to wait and see. But I believe as we're thinking about this stuff, and I have a video or podcast idea for just like thinking of an anti-fragile business model. And, if we're trying to be self-employed, if we're trying to not have to have a job, like the main thing that you can do is, do the best you can. But if you're trying to not have a job, like the best thing you can do is make sure you don't have to get a job. So that means you need to have enough traffic sources or revenue sources or both to ensure that you can pivot when you need to. And even if you lost all of your Google traffic, could you still operate? If so, how? And there's probably like a series of questions that you can go through like an exercise where you imagine some worst case scenarios. What if my YouTube channel gets shut off and I can't access it for some reason? Maybe it's an accident, right? Maybe someone does hit the wrong button. What do I do? How would I get out of it? How long would it take? And most likely, that is not going to happen, but it's possible. You hear about it, some very big channels, people where they have like a account manager and stuff, and it just accidentally happens and it's a big thing. And they may have like, for me, I'm not contractually obligated to publish videos for sponsors or anything like that. But some people have like their sponsorship lined up for months, and like it would represent a very big issue for them from a revenue perspective, from scheduling, relationships with their partners out there, and it could be a very big problem. So again, if you imagine that you want to create a business and be able to support yourself so that you don't have to get a job, you have to think about some worst case scenarios that probably won't happen, but if you prepare for them, even if they're super unlikely, if you prepare for them, it'll put you in a really good spot. And this is one of the issues that I've observed kind of in the broad ecosystem, but people will be earning huge amount of money. And I've seen this like since I got started in 2013. They'll be earning a huge amount of money. Like they'll earn in a month what they used to earn in a year. And they spend a little too much. Sometimes they reinvest a little too much into a risky business, which there were many folks. I mean, I think people would now readily admit content sites, pretty volatile, pretty risky. I think it'll be, I mean, unless people are playing with a very risk insensitive portion of their portfolio, very few people would be like, yeah, I'm going to buy a website for over $100,000 that might go to zero in the next update. I mean, that's so risky, right? So I observed like people spend too much money when they were earning a lot, or they would reinvest too much into their very volatile business, but they didn't think it was volatile, or they heard other people say, it's not risky. I'm making like, 3x return each year and it's growing and blah, blah, blah. But when you're feeling a little too invincible, like that's when you can make some poor decisions and kind of overextend yourself. So anyway, let's hit the last comments here. Thanks for hopping on today. Jason mentions, Mark, I think it's complicated. They can do both, have bad intentions, and also screw up the rollout. And Gaz mentions, if the niche site isn't great, I bounce and scroll down. I just hope Google is looking at my metrics, because if I can get people on site, they stay and read multiple pieces of content. Repugnant says, if you follow websites that use Ezoic, you can get a large list of them. You can see people switching their main traffic sources to Pinterest. A lot of Ezoic sites got wrecked and are changing it up. Gotcha. Yeah, and I think, like I said, if we could just imagine, like, if your major traffic source goes away, or like, hey, if you want to build a niche site or a content site, imagine not getting Google traffic at all and go from there. I mean, maybe you get traffic from one of the many other sources out there. A lot of people are into Facebook or Pinterest. But then after you do that, right, because everyone's now moving in that direction, you need to think about, hey, what happens if Facebook changes their algorithm? What happens if Pinterest changes their algorithm? And the business model shifts and it costs twice as much to acquire traffic, whether it's like capital or the amount of time that it takes. So you have to think a little bit farther out, because it's a little bit more complicated when you imagine this whole piece can just like go away. All right. So a quick shout out for, I think WP Eagle, Alex Cooper is going to be talking to Ricky tomorrow. So do check that out. Should be an interesting conversation. If you want to help me out a little bit, please check out the Ranking Revolution podcast. It's new out there, and you can get to the YouTube channel if you follow the link in the description right here. And, oh yeah, another thing, I have a Redbubble site, and I plugged this the other week in the email list, but I have a couple photos that I've taken. T-shirt that I designed here, Yellowstone National Park. Kind of cool. I think I'm going to do more of those. And I took this photo last time we were out there. Got some other cool stuff, but the really cool one from the other week is the total eclipse. So I took this picture of the total eclipse. That's a greeting card version of it, but there's a lot of different stuff. You can actually get the metal print, or you can get a photo. What is this? A little spiral notebook, a poster. Anyway, I took this photo, edited a couple things, and it honestly looks pretty cool. I'm going to order it myself. That's what it would look like if it was on your wall, I suppose. But yeah, it was cool. You can see this little flame right here, and there were a couple others up there. Really amazing. Anyway, I got a Redbubble site out there, so you can check it out if you want to buy something. A couple of those T-shirts. And check out the rest of the links. I do these live streams about once a week or so. So do check it out. And the other thing, if you want to buy anything, that's cool. The other thing you could check out is this video. And do leave a comment out there. It'll be interesting to see what happens if you comment on each one of the comments that are already there. There's something like 40. I mean, we can get a lot of them out there if we all work together. I should re-comment on my own stuff, but I don't think that helps the algorithm. I think other people need to do it. So anyway, we'll catch you next time. And Repugnant says, I'm actually seeing a lot more sites getting a pretty large with 0 Google traffic, which is cool. And appreciate you popping on, guys. We'll catch everybody next time. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you later.